9 most famous legendary swords in the world.
1. Excalibur Sword. The Excalibur Sword, also known as the Sword in the Stone, has two separate legends about its origin concerning King Arthur. Firstly, it appears in Robert de Boron's poem, Merlin, where it tells the tale of a peculiar sword embedded in a stone, known as Excalibur, which only King Arthur could pull out. Another legend presents Excalibur from the post-Vulgate suite du Merlin. King Arthur acquired Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake after his first sword broke during a battle with King Pellinore. The sword is described as having the power to cut through steel, but whether it's purely mythical or real is difficult to ascertain. Nevertheless, its mystique has made it a subject of artistic creations, theatrical performances, and even anime. 2. Kusanagi Sword. When mentioning this sword, many would associate it with Kusanagi that Uchiha Sasuke always carries after leaving the Leaf Village. Right, that's correct. This sword is known as one of the 3 Imperial Regalia of Japan. Legend has it that 2. Kusanagi was found inside the body of an 8-headed serpent, which explains why Sasuke is often associated with snakes, and the creature he summons is also a snake. The serpent was killed by the sea god. Later, Kusanagi became associated with the Imperial Regalia and the symbol of the sun goddess Amaterasu. It represents sacred authority and governance over the Japanese people by the royal family. Currently, the sword is enshrined in the Otsuta Shrine in Nagano Province, but its existence has not been publicly disclosed for many centuries. 3. Durandal is also one of the most mysterious swords in the world. According to legend, for hundreds of years, the legendary sword Durandal was embedded in the rock above the small Notre Dame church in Rocamadour, France. People say that it was the sword of the knight Roland. Roland threw his sword into the rock so that it would not fall into the enemy's hands during a battle. Thus, the small Notre Dame church became a point of pilgrimage for believers since the 17th century. The authorities removed the sword from the rock and preserved it, exhibiting it at the Cluny Museum in Paris in 2011. 4. Muramasa Sword. Muramasa is a cursed sword, created by a disciple of the famous swordsmith Okazaki Goronudo Masamune. Legends say that due to his malicious heart and lack of control over the sword forging temperature, Muramasa resented his master and stole his techniques to forge swords for himself. Masamune became furious upon discovering this and cut off the hand of his disobedient student. With vengeance and anger flowing into the sword, Muramasa became infamous for its malevolence. During the Warring States period in Japan, there was a great demand for swords, and Muramasa produced the finest ones used in direct combat. However, due to their sharpness and negative reputation, they were called evil swords, demon blades, and were ostracized, causing fear and nightmares for many. 5. Honjo Masamune Sword. If we have mentioned Muramasa, we cannot leave out Honjo Masamune. Legend has it that the swords Muramasa and Masamune had a contest. While Muramasa's cursed sword could cut anything it touched, Masamune's sword never harmed innocent lives. Many consider Masamune's sword a valuable national treasure, but it has never been seen with human eyes. This adds to its mystery. 6. Sword of St. Peter. We cannot overlook the sword of St. Peter. There are many legends about the sword of St. Peter, which he supposedly used to cut off the ear of a servant. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Joseph of Arimathea took the Holy Chalice along with the sword to England. However, Bishop Jordan brought this sword to Poland in 968. Since then, it has been in Poland and is now preserved in the Archdiocese Museum in Poznan. 7. Wallace Sword. Legend has it that a knight used human skin as the sheath, hilt, and belt to carry the sword. Sounding a bit gruesome, doesn't it? This is the Wallace Sword of Dryburgh. The commanding officer of Scotland responsible for the treasury, Hugh de Cressingham, used by William Wallace as a scabbard. After defeating him in the Battle of Stirling, people can still see this sword at the Wallace National Monument. Time has worn it down, and it has been repaired many times. Wallace was executed by King Edward I of England for treason in 1305. Despite that, the image of the heroic knight with the massive sword remains deeply ingrained in the hearts of the Scottish people. Currently, he is seen as a national hero, and his sword remains one of the most famous swords in the world, preserved to this day. 8. Sword of Viet King Caodine. Goujian referring to this sword. Those who have watched the movie Viet King Caodine cannot forget. A notable sword was found in a damp tomb in China in 1965. According to historians, this sword is about 2,000 years old, yet there is not a trace of rust on it. Through research and archaeological findings of inscriptions on the sword, it is believed to be the sword of Viet King Caodine, also mentioned in the Viet Tu Yet Thu Viet Chronicles. The Vietnamese metallurgists at that time achieved the level of combining rust-resistant compounds into the blade, which was surprising. Besides, its airtight scabbard almost perfectly preserved the sword's condition over to millennia. 9. Seven-branch sword. Last but not least, we have to mention the seven-branch sword. A mysterious sword was found in the Isonokami Shrine in Japan in 1945. What sets this sword apart is the 6 split branches emanating from both sides the blade is. Considered the 7th branch, there are faintly carved characters under the sword, indicating that it was a gift from a Korean king to the Japanese emperor. It could be the 7-branch sword of Empress Jingyu, a mythical divine emperor with much debate in Japan's ancient history. These are all renowned swords from around the world. Whether they are displayed in museums or objects whose true whereabouts remain unknown, they are truly some of humanity's most crystallized works of creativity. These are the most mysterious swords in the world, intertwined with ancient legends. If you ever have the chance, witnessing them in person will satisfy your curiosity.